Joining us from Chicago is William Howell. He is the Sidney Stein Professor of American Politics at the University of Chicago. He has studied and written extensively about the stresses on our democracy. Welcome to Square Off, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Among the threats to our democracy at this moment, where would you rank the filibuster?
Well, I would rank legislative dysfunction really quite highly. We do not have currently a Congress that can adequately attend to the profound challenges that our country faces. And the legislative process is all but defunct. And the filibuster plays an important role. It's not the only thing that is kind of contaminating the legislative process, but it's an important one.
The Senate has gone through periods like this in the past. I think the late 50s and early 60s might be among them. What makes this moment different from those moments in the past?
Well, look, it's really been in the last 12 to 13 years that we have seen both major parties use the filibuster with utter abandon. It was used sparingly for much of American history, but now it is kind of a routine feature. For no matter what the bill is that's put forward, it now has to meet a supermajority threshold. And that combined with the remarkable polarization between the Democrats and the Republicans right now means that it's all but impossible to get something done.
So give us a history lesson here. How did the filibuster start? Some people think it began with George Washington and the founding fathers. Tell us,
No.
Give us the history.
Yeah, so the filibuster was not a part of the framers' original design. They recognized the need for supermajoritarian requirements for some kinds of things like impeachment, but it's not in the Constitution. It was sort of an accident in the designation of Senate rules in the early 1800s, wherein they failed to establish a mechanism to end debate. It wasn't really until 1917 with the adoption of Rule 22. Now we're getting deep into the weeds here, but Rule 22 that established a procedure called invoking cloture, whereby you could stop debate if you could get 2/3 of the Senate to sign on. That then shifted, that 2/3 threshold dropped down to 3/5 in 1975. And so we saw that change. And then we saw additional changes wherein for appointments, first at the district and appellate level, and then now at the Supreme Court level, appointments to the judiciary are not subject to a filibuster. They used to be. So look, the filibuster is a moving target. It wasn't there at the beginning. The rules that govern it have changed over time. And the idea that it is somehow sacrosanct, that it is a defining feature of our government doesn't match up with history.
What we often hear from folks is it is a relic of Jim Crow and the Southern civil rights issues. And it has been tied to the Southern senators defending their laws, discriminatory laws, from federal legislation. So Jim Crow, is it a direct result of Jim Crow, a tool to defend Jim Crow?
Look, again, much of American history, the filibuster was used sparingly. To the extent that it was used originally to protect the institution of slavery, then the institution of Jim Crow, and to block efforts to pass federal legislation on civil rights.
What are the potential outcomes, the horribles that might ensue if the filibuster were somehow done away with?
Well, the horrible outcomes. There's this claim, and we saw it at the top of this segment, that somehow policy will radically shift from the left to the right. I don't think we have any evidence of that actually happening. The Democratic and Republican parties consist of diverse coalitions, and all laws will still have to pass both the House and the Senate and be subject to a presidential veto and subject to the scrutiny of the courts. So the idea that this is going to unleash all kinds of policy instability, I just don't see the evidence for, nor is there any evidence that suggests that somehow the filibuster brokers greater bipartisanship or greater deliberation. In fact, what we see is that senators routinely don't take on in a serious minded way hard debates that we need to have precisely because they see the threshold of overcoming, of acquiring 60 votes is simply too far out of reach. And so they don't invest the time to actually pass serious minded legislation that's designed to solve the problems that we as a country face.
Now, many scholars like yourself have advanced possible solutions. I know a colleague of yours, I think at the University of Chicago, has to somehow amend the filibuster to help meet this moment while at the same time protect minority views. Can you give us just a real quick summary of what that would be?
Yeah, so this is a bill, a suggestion by my colleague and co-author Ken Shepsley and his co-authors out at Harvard. And what they point out is that if you just do away with the filibuster, a world in which Republicans gain control and Republicans who represent a minority of the country by virtue of the malapportionment of seats in the Senate, small states are represented by two senators in the same way that big states are, and that the Republican Party benefits from the fact that they're disproportionately represented among small states. And so they suggest something wherein, in order to pass a bill, you have to get a majority of seats, a majority of Senate votes that represent a majority of the country. It's a way to kind of introduce majoritarian sentiment, not just in terms of the representation of Senate votes, but also of the larger population into this procedure. It's a really kind of clever move and a smart move in my mind.
Professor William Howell, thank you so much for your insight.
It's a pleasure to be with you.